Hello and welcome to another Random Code stream. Make sure my desktop audio is on, and let's make sure this is going, and let's get into it. So the majority of this stream will probably be looking at a small refactoring issue I found. In Rocks, I made a refactoring to allow you to basically, like in Visual Studio, if you're on a type definition of some sort, that would offer up the ability to create the attribute for you. And if you specified something in your CSproj file, then it would use that file instead. And that's actually worked out kind of slick. Was trying to demo something or look at something, and so I created a small project and referenced rocks from NuGet, and then I typed in like a member or an interface definition. I just did the refactoring, and boom, the attribute just shows up, and it's like, wow, that's really nice. I actually find that to be enjoying. By the way, hi Mitch, good to see you again. So I'm gonna be spending some time. There was a small issue I found when I was using it, that it didn't work with a certain condition, and I'll get into that in a moment. The thing I want to talk a little bit about first, though, is some notes I've created on static abstract members in interfaces. So that is something I've been thinking about for quite a while to implement in Rocks. And I started actually doing some real how is this going to work stuff this past week or two, and there's already a couple things that I've run into. And quite frankly, I'm glad I do this now rather than just diving in and trying to move fast, break things. I hate that phrase. I really, really do. Let's be a little bit more thoughtful about what we do as software developers, in my opinion. So I'd rather spend time thinking about all the what ifs, and especially since in building and maintaining this library for 10 years now, it's always shown that taking the time to think about what are the ramifications of doing something always pays off in the long run. So one of the things that's popped up, and this isn't even it's related to static abstract members, because a lot of the interfaces that are in the generic math namespace, like addition operators and so on, they use something called CRGP or CRTP. It's the curiously recurring generic pattern. And so this isn't one of them in .NET, but this is just an example of it. So you have, here, let me zoom in on this a little bit. You have something like an interface or class, doesn't matter, where the generic kind of recursively is constrained to itself. Okay. And so, there's reasons why you want to do this at times. In fact, a framework called CSLA, which a friend of mine, Rocky, has been maintaining for decades, did this pretty much as soon as generics were added. And so this is not anything specific to static abstract members in interfaces, but a lot of the interfaces do this. And the problem with this in Rocks is, I've got a whole bunch of notes here, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. But right now, the mock type, if I actually go into one of my tests, and just doesn't matter which one, let's just grab this interface one. Yeah. Is the thing that actually handles all of the verifications of your expectation, not verifications, but checks to see if you actually set up expectations and stuff like that. I always generate this private nested class that implements the type that you're targeting. And so from the expectations, there is a method generated here, instance. And so that actually creates an instance of that type here. And so this all works out just fine. The problem is when you do the repeating pattern thing, is because the constraints also end up on the expectations type, if there was a generic here, it would show up there as well. And so it's expecting something to be of that repeating pattern type. And even if I opened up the mock type, so that's at least visible to you so you can see it, I've got this now repeating problem because I don't know how to fill in the hole to the generic. If I have this here, I'll try to fill it in with this, but now I need to fill in this hole. Well, what would that be? Well, it'd be another thing of these, but then what would I fill in that hole with? And it just keeps going on and on and on and on. You can get around this with an intermediary type. That's something that a user would have to create themselves. Or I was thinking about, this is just throwing stuff on the wall. I was saying, generate one for me. And so that's what your mock type would inherit from. Okay. Now the thing is, we'd also have to remove the constraint here, but we really can't because we well, so that's the other thing, is if I had the other idea though, because there's problems with this as well. But yeah, and I started getting defeatist and thinking that you'd have to handle a static abstract member yourself. One idea that came out of all this, again, that's independent of this work, is providing a method called return self. And so you could set in your expectations a way to say, if I wanted to return something and I just want to return the thing back, and I set that flag, it would just return the this back. That might be helpful for some things with SAMIs. Another thought that I had with this is move the mock type out of the expectations, but use a file level accessibility on it. So it still can only be seen by that code within. But then what that would do is a couple things. One, I could probably then look for that CRGP pattern itself. And on that mock type, anytime there's a generic on the type I'm trying to mock that recurses, that references itself, fill in the hole with the mock type already. And if there are any remaining type parameters, still expose them, still have their constraints there, but then, and then only have those constraints in expectations when it creates an instance like it would, or anytime it would use that type parameter, it would use the mock type because it's already done CRGP to itself. So that sounds like a lot of babbling, but this is kind of still on hold because there's a lot of things that I've been thinking about with this. And even if I don't do the SAMI stuff, there's a couple of ideas like returning self, doing CRGP automatically for you, and maybe I do those as a setup for this. So again, this needs to have this thought put into it and make sure that I'm going to land on the right space. So yeah. So I'm not moved on from this. I'm still doing it off camera, but I'm only going to start doing work on it when I feel like I actually have a plan and maybe a POC and some other things to think about in place so that I know it will actually work correctly. And that's the nice thing about doing things with source generators, because you can just say, well, generate the source. Let's take a look at that code and then actually potentially put it into another file and then edit it and do the things that you want to do to it to see what happens if I would change it this way. Would this actually work? So it's kind of nice it's much easier than trying to going, what would happen if I needed to change it here and I'm doing it all with like IL generation? That would suck. So that's another reason why I like source generators so much, because from a maintenance standpoint, there's actually a lot of things you can do that make it easier. Okay. So that's that. That's that one. So this is the one I'm talking about. So when I was playing with rocks and I was using that refactoring, what I wanted to do is I was like, hey, I'm on a base type. I'd like to just use that base type as the target for RockAttribute. And that it wasn't coming up if you're on a base type definition. Now, if this was actually an interface, it seems to work. So I don't know what the case is here. And I also want to think about maybe where else could I target a type and a type definition and make sure that it comes up, So that's some other things I want to just spend some time on this morning. So I've got a branch already set up, and I believe I have my tests here. So let's get a test created, because that's what we do. We create tests so that we make them fail. Run when base type is class async. So we want to have this. Okay. And then we want to have the cursor here. Actually, let's use this as an example, because that test was based on something that's a little bit more complicated. Okay. So we have source, fixed source, and the fixed source should be, I believe what we want it to say is, we also have to have public, we'll just say abstract class base. It would help if we actually had the base type derived. Now, when I was using my example, I did have this, so that wasn't the problem. But we would expect to see that here, and then the rest of it would be like this, except not that. Now, my guess is that this should fail. And it does, as expected. Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Thinks it should be derived class. That's funny. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's put in the other one that I found. Run when base type is interface. So we'll just say interface I, and we'll put in some useless void do. And then we'll say derive class derives from I base class. And then we have to put in the implementation here. Public void do. And now what we would expect to see is this would be I base class. And it's not. Yeah, it keeps picking up that the cursor is not on this. So let's dive into this. Let's figure out why. Because this is actually not even the behavior I saw. So go figure on that one. All right. I love that they've added in a new analyzer, the spell analyzer, which of course doesn't show up as an error. Thank God. But, like it's saying refactoring is not a word here. Well, yeah, but it's a programmatic made up word. And I've noticed this at work over the past week or so. And in a couple cases, it's actually ended up, catching a couple things that I literally did spell wrong, because it's not even an analyzer, because I've noticed it picks it up in like markdown files and other things. So it might be something that's very specific to Visual Studio. So this spelling one, but kind of a nice one, kind of an interesting one that it picks up. All right, so let's delete all breakpoints. Let's come here. Let's make sure we're in debug. All right, so let's first do it as a class. So what did it find first as a node? Base class. Okay, so that's good. It actually did find that it's that it is the base class. Okay, cool. Let's step in. Oh, I took that off for some reason. Okay. Oh, is that not? So we say the parent is the self. We start out that way. And then the parent is not null. And so we use these syntax node types to say when we find something that's equal to this. I think that's not exactly what we want, because it's going to come up with a null here. And so then what it's doing is it's expanding slowly out, and it's finding that this in the syntax tree is part of the type definition that's saying I want to inherit from this type. Can't remember, is the X cursor position? Oh, yeah, so what Mitch is referring to is this. So this is something that the Roslyn team came up with. They better not ever come up with a syntax in C# that requires you to do this. So what they do in their test their test packages for the Roslyn stuff, if I go to the test project here, you'll see, for example, that I use Microsoft Code Analysis, C# code refactoring testing. There's ones for analyzers and source generators, I believe, as well, and cofixes maybe. But the point is they have these packages that they publish that make it so that you can do something like, this is a little wrapper around it, but I use this code refactoring test, which derives from their type. And then you can set it up with the things that you need and just say run. And it handles so much stuff for you that you don't have to worry about anymore. So that's cool. With refactorings, what they did is they said, well, I want to say, what am I currently pointed on? What they could have done is said, well, you'd have to add into our test stuff like a span, a location in your code to say where does the cursor actually exist. And that, I think you can actually do that still, or you can do that. Or you can, but then you have to remember, like if you're changing this code here, if I add a line, if I add a space, yada, yada, now my span is all off. So they said, well, this doesn't exist as legitimate C# code. So what they do is they'll look at your source, they'll find these and basically synthesize those as that's where your cursor is or highlighting over. But then what they really compile is code that doesn't have that in there. Okay. So no, that's not something, excuse me, that I came up with. That's just how you do the stuff when you're using their test libraries for Roslyn specific stuff. So it's kind of a neat thing that they actually did this. But again, they better never create something that requires syntax like this, because then it would break everybody's tests here. and they'd have to come up with something else, some other fancy sigil or something to say that's where the start and end of it is. All right, so getting back to my test here, I think what I want to do is say that the parents, that T is assignable from or is assignable to, one or the other, because right now our parent is a simple base type syntax. So if I say, how would I bring that up? Simple base type syntax. Let's just say simple base type syntax, and then F12 on that. It's a base type syntax. So that's why it's not showing up here, because that node is actually not a declaration, which now that I look at this, I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. If I said type of base type syntax, okay, and then I don't have to worry about, like, is it assignable to? Is it? Although I might want to do that. I'm not sure. Maybe. What happens now when we do this? Still doesn't work. Still thinks it's derived class. Okay. Oh, yeah. Now it won't work because we do need that. So, okay, that's fine. You're welcome, Mitch. So, yeah, now I want to do that. So now we have to play the is assignable from game. There is an assignable to, but I don't think we can see it in .NET Standard 2.0, so that's why it's not available. So this is, oops, determines where instance of a specified type, that's T, can be assigned to an instance. So no, it's the other way. See, I always screw this up. And so now let's read this again. Instance of a specified type can be assigned to an instance of the current type. No, is it the other way around? This is one of the worst APIs that I think they've ever created. That's why I think they created is assignable to, because it reads better that way. Is the parent assignable to T? So I think actually it's the other way around. You have to, like, do the Boolean logic and reverse it. So let's see what happens now when we run this test. Still doesn't work. Still doesn't come up with that. Did I break the whole world, by the way? There's two that are going to fail because I added this test as well, but the rest of them are still passing. So that works. Okay, well, why is it not? No, I said there. It didn't go into the debugger. So let's take this off, run it. So let's just say if I do type of base type syntax is assignable from parent get type. It is. So it should come out with a match. Oh, I know why. Yeah, it does, but we don't have a way to handle it here. Okay, so that was my fault. So assuming we get a match, let's play with the model. What would happen when I say model.get symbol info of the parent. You get declared symbol. Oh, that's great. Parent. Is there something on the parent that we can use? Because this derives from something, so this should be our simple base type. Oh, there's a type property on it. Okay, so let's see. Hey, Bug. You've been following my Hollow Knight streams, but you're on a coding stream, so if you want to watch, go ahead. Maybe this is what's interesting you as well. All right, so on parent, it said there's a type, but it doesn't show up here. Can you stay over there? Oh, now it says it's an identifier token. Oh, that's interesting. Well, all of them, whether it's a identifier token, but if I highlight the whole thing, it's a simple base type. But either way, if I was highlighting like one part of it, it all should come up to a simple base type. And that is saying there is a type. Oh, wait a minute. I'm being stupid. I haven't cast it yet. Duh. Parent as simple base type syntax. Or we could just say base type syntax. Type. Hey! There you go. That did something. Okay, so now let's grab this and say model.get symbol info on all that. There you go. It's in the symbol thing. So we could also say get declared. I don't think that's what we want though. Yeah, that's not going to work. But get symbol info is. Okay, so we're on a roll here. I do intend to learn coding. That's great. I highly encourage you to do that. Just be advised, this is a very specific kind of encoding. I'm working with compilation APIs, and this is in C#. So this is not your typical stuff, and this is a little bit more, I hate to say advanced, but that's kind of what it is. But I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to level set. That's all. So let's put that in here. Let's say if oh crap, I don't remember what it's going to be. Let's say if here, and then we'll say this is a base type syntax. Base type syntax. And then we'll say here that we want to get symbol info from the type as oh, we don't care what it is. Yeah, because here we're just declare. Okay, So we want to say the parent symbol here would be this. And take that out. Okay. What happens now? Hey, it passes. Hey, it passes. Yippee. All right. Let's just make sure I didn't break the world. Since you're wanting to learn how to code bug, one thing I'm going to stress highly is what I'm doing right now, which is write tests. That is an absolute requirement as a developer. Write tests. They can save you. And so I don't know how many times I've done a stream or written code or done anything in my career where I've said I'm actually very happy that I wrote tests because it helps so much. Okay, so actually I guess we don't even need. We could just say when target is the base type, and it really doesn't matter what it is. So let's get rid of that one. Let's bring up the scenarios project. And let's see what it does now. So if I come into let's create a new one here. Let's do refactoring targets. Just to have like a type or a file that has the things I'm looking for. So I took that out already. Let's do public abstract class base type. And then we'll say here protected base type. All right. And then we'll come down here and we'll have a public class derived type that derives from base type. And now you don't show up. Why? Okay, well those are actually happening. This is one of the problems with yeah, none of the things are coming up. By the way, Mitch, if you're still on, this is I think this is somewhat related to that issue that you brought up about making the projects debuggable. I think that it's somewhat related to this as well in terms of being able to handle like referencing Roslyn based stuff as a project. So because then you end up in this stupid world that I'm in right now, you have to keep shutting down and starting up again. Well, that's nice. They're now starting to the SLNX files are starting to show up in. Although now I can't tab over. Whatever. In the list there, they weren't before. What? Yeah, I was like, what the hell? I was like, that's usually at the top of my list. I'm just curious if I need to do an update on Visual Studio. Yeah, no, it's fine. Me and some of my friends are trying to get over so. Yeah, and actually, if you're starting as a developer, I mean, I don't know how old you're, Bug, and you don't need to tell me like a specific age or anything. My guess is you're probably younger than I am. But you know, using something like Roblox or using other things that are along those lines, you know, they're arguably simpler, but they actually get people up to speed a lot quicker than potentially some other languages or some other tools, you know, and can help to actually start to get some concepts about development in your head. So now I'm on 7.14. I just have a minor update. I'll do that later. I'm not going to do that now. Okay. Anyway, let's see if we can get this to show up now. I don't want these. So it should show up with this, and it doesn't. I mean, it is invoking stuff that, like this one, that's the analyzer that, well, it's not showing up actually here, but it is showing up in the error list. So this is just the fun about getting that to work. I don't know why. Sometimes it just doesn't. And it kind of sucks. There we go. Let's bring this up. Because, I mean, we know it works. It's like you have to unload it and reload it and unload it and reload it. And it's just, it is the pain of developing anything. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Catastrophic failure. That's great to see. That's awesome. I'm kind of curious if I said file new project and I said a blank solution. No, not a blank solution. A console app. It would create a new solution. I was just wondering if it had the support built in already to use the SLNX. Let's just say next here. No, they still don't have it in as tooling support. All right, that's fine. Come on, third time's a charm? No, why? Why are you not? Why are you no worky? Let's take that out for just a second. Okay, so it succeeds now. Nope, that didn't do it either. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, Mitch, because there's and usually I don't do what I'm doing right now with Visual Studio. Usually I can have it up all day and it's just fine. But if I'm doing stuff with Roslyn, specifically trying to test it as it's actually running as something referenced by another project, it seems like I get stuck in this world of, like, it just won't load it. There it goes. Okay, so that was on the base type. Maybe I just need to, now it's, well, we want it here. Hey, it worked. Clearing my bin and object folder. Yeah, but I use artifacts. So the other thing I was going to mention is I tried that with rocks, and there's actually, there should be, yeah, artifacts output. And all sorts of havoc ensued. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I tried to do that with this project and see what would happen. Maybe I put it back to here and try it again. I don't know why, but when I tried it almost a year ago, it was over a year ago that I tried this. God, it's been over a year. It's been 84 years. Forget that Titanic woman. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I try that again. So, oh God. But yeah, if I use artifacts, I think that's a much better approach. But again, when I was trying to use that, something just bizarre happened. I don't remember what it was. I should probably have taken better notes. But maybe that's something to use because it doesn't affect the output from like a NuGet package perspective and any new features, but it would be something to make it possibly a little bit easier overall. That's something else I got to do. I have to create a GitHub action. I got to get that and do the build process that way. I take PRs. There's actually an issue out there to finally get the actions working. That would be nice. It's just something I got to put my head down and get it to work. All right. So I think we fixed this. Whatever this was is now fixed. And so the thing, though, that's interesting is, let's say that I did like public void do. Okay. And now I say int or like string x is equal to hi. The reason why I'm doing this is just, this is all barking because, it should be static. It should, this, I want use var instead. That's not the point. Somebody may like to write code this way. Okay. So what happens if I do this? It does pick it up. That's nice. But do you notice what it's doing here? It's doing the thing where it goes all the way up and says, hey, I want to do it for derived type, not string here. So since we're on a roll here, what are you coding? This is something called a refactoring. So in Visual Studio, and refactoring in general is just a concept that, do I have the book? Yeah, I do. Hold on one sec. Let's see if I can get it off my shelf here without causing a whole bunch of havoc. So this was the original book. When was this actually? I remember reading this when it first came out. This is 1999. My God, this is 26 years old. I am an old fart. But this is the original book, Refactoring. Okay. And essentially the idea of refactoring is you can make changes to your code that improve the style of the code without actually affecting the implementation of the code. That was the general and still is the purpose around refactoring. And so there's all sorts of refactoring sometimes you get from the light bulb here. This is actually a code fix. Well, this is also refactoring to say, hey, maybe you can make this method static, or maybe you could pull out a piece of code from a method and extract it into its own method, those types of things. And so in C#, you can build your own refactorings to say, in the case of my library here, rocks, my source generator needs an attribute defined so that it knows to generate all this other code. And what I've created is this refactoring that just says, hey, I want to write that for you, which it should now be over here in this file. Okay. So that's what I'm building here. Again, something that you don't do a lot of. And this is very language specific. The concept of refactorings and refactoring isn't. That's a general software programming concept. This refactoring that I've created is specific to C# and how its compiler works and how you can extend it. So hopefully that helps. All right. Since I'm on a roll here, let's actually do that if I use a definition. I think this is what I'm always going to be running into with this refactoring is what happens if somebody has a type here or a type here or a type here or a type here? How do I capture that? So if anybody's watching, you can think of other ways that you're able to capture a type. Put them in the comments. I'm wondering if there's other things that I'm not thinking of. So if we have a test here that says, I never use is, I don't know. What's the technical term for this? Type declaration when target is type declaration. It's not a declaration when target is type reference. Is variable type reference. It's so stupid. Not a cast. It's just saying, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. What happens if, no, casts. That's another one. Like if I do var x is equal to I thing of q, whatever q would be. What would that be? That's another one. Yeah, keep them coming. And I don't think there's a generalized way to handle this. I literally, because of the way to find the paired symbol, If it's a base type, I got to get it this way. If it's an identifier name, I have to get the symbol info, and if that's not null, try it this way. So each one of these different syntax node types have a different way to get potentially the symbol that I'm looking for. So that's unfortunate, but oh well, that's coding. I'm just going to say is variable type reference. I really don't. Explicit type is the terminology. Okay, that's fair. Let's say explicit type. So what we want to have here, and again, we don't care if it's correct code or not. The refactoring isn't checking to see is the target. Well, let's actually interface iTarget. Because in the future I might do, so let's future proof our code. What I'm saying here is iTarget usage. I may add in the future with the refactoring. Right now I don't check to see if you can actually use that target type as a mock type. That is something that I want to look at doing to make it a little bit more defensive. So I want to have public static void run, and then we say here class, because it'll make it easier. Target public virtual void do. So then we say here target target is equal to a new, and we can use target type new because we know what it is. So that's all valid code. What we want to say now is if we put that little sigil here, is that what we would expect to see down here is target. And I bet we won't. That's actually going to probably say iTarget usage. It passed? Oh, I wonder if it's a identifier name. It's a string keyword. Predefined type syntax. Local declaration. Well, that's the whole thing here. That's a variable declaration. Predefined type syntax. What is that? A type syntax. Is that something that I'm already looking for? I'm wondering if it's catching this. No, that's a node. How the hell did this work? I don't know. Let's check it. I'm curious. I'm just curious as to what it actually, because I did not expect this to work out of the gate, and it does. It'd be different for lang keyword. It might. I do think the compiler, though, at the end of the, well, and this isn't a. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. So let's do. This is fun for an odd definition of fun. So this is why I do software, because I actually like doing it. All right. So the parent is. Oh, it is coming through as an identifier name. Oh, and that gets back to what you were saying. Yeah, I can just see that here. If I do type here. It's actually interesting. I should be able to say var here because this is, no, I can't, because it doesn't have best guess collection expressions or whatever that's called. If I said var here, it doesn't automatically pick up, do you want an array? Do you want a list itself? So, okay, if I did that, yeah, it's an identifier name. That's right. So that's probably why it works. And in fact, that is why it works. And like you said, with system string, I think those keyword types might be handled a little bit differently. But we don't really care about those because those types can't be mocked anyway. Well, object can, technically. You can mock an object, literally the object type. So if I said object O is not 0, O is equal to new, and then I looked in the visualizer and I said, what does that end up being? That is the object keyword, and as a predefined type. If I said string here, that is also a predefined type. If I said string, that is an identifier name and it would be picked up as an identifier. So the predefined types actually make sense, because with most of them, like if I said int here, you can't mock an int, but an object you actually can. So that is another one. And another one. Let's get rid of this. You said cast predefined types. So if we said object O is equal to new, that would be another one. What would happen if I did a cast? Yes, let's just do it. So if I said my brain is starting to get fried. This isn't it's a cast, but not quite a cast. It's a pattern expression. And if I put it on here, let's just say var the is equal to identifier name syntax of the parent. And I clicked on this. It'd be an identifier name, so it actually would pick it up correctly. Switch statements, expressions, maybe another case. Would it? I got one down here. That would be an identifier name, so that would pick up correctly. But it's because that's my pattern that I'm doing here. That's why I did the identifier name, because I think that ends up catching a lot of things in a lot of specific cases. Like I just found out with the cast, that would also be an identifier name. But the predefined type is a little bit different. And all we care about with the predefined type is really, is it a recasting? Run when target is explicit is predefined type. So in this case, we just want to say target usage. We don't care. We want to say and object O is equal to new, and we do this and that. And then the source should end up being type of, this will be interesting. I'm not sure. Is it going to be big O? Is it going to be system.object? I'm not sure. And I don't even think this is going to be right out of the gate, because let's actually comment that out for a second, because we don't know what that's going to be. Let's see what it does first. Target usage. That makes sense because it doesn't know what that is. So now if we put this back in here and we said And actually, let's go back to this because I want identifier name to be the first one that it hits in the branch. If we said predefined type syntax, we don't know what this is going to do right now. So let's see what happens when we hit it. When pattern matching 2. Yeah, maybe. So what happens when we run this? We get object. We actually do get some. So this is actually the way to do it. Okay. So let's finish this. Yeah, now it's going to fail and break into. Let's just actually do this now. And let's see what the code thinks it should be. System.object. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. So system.object. Hey, I think identifier name will cover most cases. Yeah, and that's why I originally had in the extension method here, this one is the first if, and then when I was changing some stuff in this stream, I pushed it down. I'm like, no, because identifier name, yeah, I agree, Mitch, that's the one that's probably going to catch the most things. And that is also why I have it as the first thing in the list here to compare against. I guess arguably I should have these ordered the same way I'm ordering them in the if, just for consistency. You don't have to. This is not necessary. But this is the order that I'm trying to find them in my if-else if branches. Predefined type. And then what do? Class interface record. Yeah. Again, not necessary, but I'm listening to this. I'm doing a challenge all night. Hey, guess what I'm going to be doing this afternoon? So, okay, cool. I think we've got a couple of extra cases here. And if I run the tests here, they all pass. Good. So let's actually commit this. 378. Added more refactoring targets. All right, and while I'm here, let's go to here and make sure I've got that. Added more syntax nodes for support for not that. And then let's get the issue in here. This is 378. Okay, I am not going to close this just yet because yeah, I'm really getting you to think, Mitch. Let me do this. As I found out when I was streaming the fix, there may be other places to look at that aren't hit by the current type searches. Identifier name syntax should cover the majority, but as I found out, like with predefined type syntax, there are exceptional cases. May want to also look at named tuple members. Switch statements and or expressions. Pattern matching. And maybe others. Again, identifier name syntax should cover most, but if there are others, let's Pokemon them now. Okay, so that's why I'm not going to close it, because I'm going to look at this later and say maybe there's maybe there's some other exceptional cases. But for now, I've committed the branch. I'll take a look at this later, and I've been doing this now for an hour, and I'd like to keep this to about I like my gaming streams. 2 hours seems to be a decent number. Coding can be an hour, but that's not a rule. But I do want to get some stuff done before I start doing some gaming streams this afternoon. So I want to get some tasks finished around the house. So with that, I'm going to finish the stream. I want to thank everybody for attending. If you have not subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. Would greatly appreciate it, as I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm getting closer, but any new subscription helps. So thank you in advance for doing that. The schedule again should be some Hollow Knight streams this afternoon and or evening. And in the United States, we have Memorial Day tomorrow, so I have off. So I will probably be doing some streams throughout the day as well, which is not typical of me on a Monday. But hey, got to use my vacation time and my holiday time and make the most of it. So with that, I am going to stop the stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.